and they'll tend to stay, like, you know, they'll probably stay for most of, if not all of their educational career, because they started at kindergarten already, so they'll keep them.
They may stay, but they could also ask them to leave. And so they'll be back in our district.
The other issue I always have, which is obviously transportation. I was always wondering why there could never be some type of cooperative venture with parents. I assume that when they're not going to school, they still transport their kids around. For example, I think one child is $35,000, $40,000 to transport to school. Why? Maybe there would be some type of balance that if you subsidize the parent, $15,000 or something. I'm just talking hypothetical. What, you know, to get these transportation costs down, why there wouldn't be more efficient ways to transport kids?
We do that with one parent, you know, that we worked out, you know, that we pay her to drive her son.
And it works out good for both?
Yes.
It's a good
Because he was too anxious to be going on a van. But the majority of the children, you know, the parents are working and they need the transportation because they may be working in one direction and the child's attending the school in another. And
so, the fourth set in your handout packet talks about comparing the in and out of district costs. Okay, so if we look on the left-hand side of this chart, we look at salaries for special programs and special education in district. Okay, because we have specialized programs in district, and the total transportation for those programs to support those programs. So we're looking at a total cost of in the vicinity of $2,5,119 for 122 students, and so that's a cost per student of $16,435. Okay, if we're looking at our in-district programs, and then if we look at the out-of-district programs on the right-hand side there, the tuitions are what we already sort of went over, the $6 million plus. The transportation is $1 million, you know, 0.2 and a little bit more, and then the total cost being $7,329,000, and that's for 114 students. And when you do the math, it's $64,293. You know, and of course, with the understanding that some, you know, students are more, but the average is 64,000 and a little bit more. So, you know, for every pretty much outplaced, you know, student, we potentially, it's kind of like a 4 to 1, you know, if you really look at it, if you wanted to look at it in terms of like the ratio that way. And so that's the comparison. On the second sheet, we have our in-district programs. So those programs are our programs that address the needs of our students in a very specialized way. Okay, so these are special education students who have needs that, you know, really, I think these programs were developed like maybe 3 years ago or 4, I don't exactly know. I think it was about 3 years now. So they've been in existence for about 3 years. And we have RISE, which is at East School. And I can tell you that based on when all of this data was gathered, which was sort of mid-November, the number of students have, you know, in some cases increased. So just so you have that, I can give you a little bit more updated, you know, if you want that. And these are the teachers that, because I know that this was requested, the subcommittee also requested, you know, what teachers we have. Oh, and here it is, the number of paras assigned. So there you go. But I'll give you a better, like something separate because you wanted pre-K also. So we have the RISE program that's at, you know, that's at East. okay? And that program addresses the needs of behaviorally challenged students. And sometimes also students that have returned to us, you know, from out of district, so it's sort of a step down from what they were getting. And then we also have Reach from kindergarten to second and Reach from third grade to fifth grade. And both of those programs, well, one program is at Vogel Wentmore, actually. And we have Voices K2 and Voices 3-5. Both of those programs are at Vogel Wentmore. And then we have ATP, which is at the middle school, and Life Skills at the middle school. And we have the high school, we have also Life Skills and Links and PAVE. So these are the programs, and actually if you wanted a description, I do have, you know, the description of the programs, what populations they serve and are intended for. So I can, you know, I have that for you, so if you want to get really in depth about that, I need copies if you want that. I don't know if you want it now. It's okay. Yeah, okay. It's okay. I think it's, yeah, I think I have it. I'm not sure. No, this is.
Do you have any other questions for that?
Okay.
Why are there four, on this sheet here, 4 teachers who have no students?
4 teachers.
There's two teachers to the classroom, so they just have the number of kids listed up top, right?
Yes. Yeah, the teacher, these are the very intense programs, so they require,
You mean ATP, like it's, one has 8, and then the person below, it's an X. Those are both in the same class?
they co-teach. Mhm.
Those 8.
Right. Mhm.
Oh,
And the same with the Links and the Life Skills program. Because, you know, 22 students would be too much for one teacher, you know. So I do know, though, that the question is still there about the pre-K, so I'll have to gather that, you know, like specifically, just the way that, you know, we did this, I could do the same thing for pre-K. And then also, you know, we did, just so that the board knows as well, I mean, I know it was approved by you guys, but we had to, with 100 pre-K, current pre-K students that, you know, qualify for special education services, and then the additional students that are, you know, outplaced, we needed to have a pre-K coordinator, you know, taking care of that whole process for the pre-K, which involves all of the PPTs. We have 64 referrals. Each referral really translates to 3 separate meetings, and many times at least 2 separate meetings if the student doesn't qualify. But, you know, so if you want more information, I'll be happy to give that to you. I definitely promise the pre-K will be, you know, broken down like this, the way this was. I hope this was helpful. If you kind of look at it later and you say, this makes no sense, I have more questions, you know, please let me know, and then I'll be happy to.
Is there a way to add a column either to the end of it or that shows us what was budgeted?
You mean like which one, on this? Anywhere.
Kind of throughout.
Okay.
So if we know that, if I look at your second set of pages, we had X number of DCF outplaced kids.
Right.
11 of them.
Mm-hmm.
How many did we budget?
Okay, yeah, so you can compare.
How many did we budget for LEA? How many for, just so we can see where we stand
Okay, sure.
as far as the finances go?
Yes.
And about finding out how fluid the situation is with each student, meaning you identified 11 kids for DCF for the budget process, and then at the end of the school year, were those the same 11 in that DCF program? Or all of them, I mean,
Okay, so,
Well, the hope is we're going to see it that quarter, giving us updates on, so, you know, special ed's always been a big budget driver, so if we can keep track of it quarterly and just get a quick update, because now that we have the base, it'll just be this with the changes in this quarter, and then we'll know where we're at. And that would show your number of students coming in, going out.
Right.
You know, if there's 11 now, and then there's 9, and then the next time there's 14, you'll know which kids came, which kids left.
So like here, even on this one, she's showing which ones left us.
So I just wanted to make sure, so we need the pre-K information like this, we need the column added to show what we budgeted, right? Versus what's being spent on, throughout the whole, all the data. And that, was that?
Well, and the other piece too is that, and then we have just our regular special ed programs in the buildings, you know, where we have teachers and support staff who work with students within our own buildings, and it's not a special program.
Right.
And I think that's something tonight that you've seen, is that we really work to what they require us to do, and that's maintaining children in the least restrictive environment in their hometown and with their non-disabled peers as best as we can.
Just one last question. In life skills, you have life skills, TMS, life skills, Torrington High School. And we have a few more students at the high school than at the TMS. But you're almost doubling, well, you're obviously having one teacher versus 2 at an additional cost of $79,000. And what is it that, what's the difference between the 2 schools that would almost double?
It could be the
that?
salary that, because the salary for the teacher is depending upon like where they are on the.
Now I'm talking about the amount of, you have twice as many teachers for roughly the same amount of students. At Life Skills, TMS,
Oh,
you have
okay,
15
yeah, I see.
students, 1 teacher. Life Skills, Torrington High School, you have 22 students, 2 teachers. So you do the math.
Yeah, right, I see what you're
Just
saying.
why is it that you have, what makes it more demanding at the high school or more intensive that you would need almost double the amount of?
I don't, I have to be
It's
honest.
the needs of the children within the group, within the program.
That varies from year to year, or is that something that's?
Because you,
Yeah, I was gonna say, it varies from student to student, right?
yes.
Right, it's
What's
true.
that?
It's the IEP, first of all, the individual education plan that determines what a student needs. Second of all, many of the students can be on a continuum of development for an identification of special needs. And so some may require more support. Some may only need a para for a little bit, and some may need someone with them all day long. So that could determine your numbers of teachers and your number of pairs in the program. You look first and foremost in special education, the individual needs of a child. Then you go, and if you have children with a similar disability and you are constantly working to have them to go between the program and into the regular classroom, and it's dependent upon the need and what kind of support do they need, both in a specialized program or in the regular classroom. And it could be very fluid.
It all comes down to the law, to the federal law of educating a child in the most appropriate and least restrictive environment.
Could say better
That's
myself,
right.
though.
And can I just add, if I may, just one more thing? The other piece is that at the high school, you know, from age 16 on, they also have an additional layer, which is the transition piece for the transition goals that have to be met. And that requires a lot, sometimes, you know, working in the community. So you know, you're gonna have some students in the community, some out, and so a teacher has to be with them. The other piece too is that they do get, you know, like the content area at the high school is the other piece, because I know Jill works a lot with the English piece, and, well, unfortunately, he didn't, he left, but this teacher actually is no longer there, but that's the other piece. The transition piece is very particular because we have to have goals in the IEP to address that, and they have to be met, and so it's a little bit more involved because of the requirements that are there with their transition to the world of work or to, you know, to functioning in society. So it's a little bit more specific. So
And we do have to educate 21.
okay.
Need a motion to extend the meeting for an hour. Second. All those in favor? 4, 5, opposed? 5, 4. Okay. You can't help drag down.
It's our own fault.
What's that?
It's our agenda. We're idiotic enough to build an agenda that's going to take us forever, listening to whatever we listen to.
Yep. Monthly business service report.
Presented this month's report to the board before, raised some questions about some of the line items that were overspent. Was asked to give a report to the budget committee with a detailed account for each of the approximately 12 budget line items that are over budget. Going to prepare that for the next budget committee meeting and hopefully move that on to the board. We put together the certified salary account and presented it to the budget committee today. It's a second revision that they've seen. In the process of doing that, we more positively identified where all the teachers are assigned certified salary accounts. And actually, the number that was originally presented in the first spreadsheet was inaccurate. And although we're continuing to work on it, there's actually a positive balance in the salary account for certified salaries. It's $480 or something like that. But we're continuing to work on the non-certified salaries in parallel with that effort. We were presented with an alternative spreadsheet by Dan that the budget committee had worked with last year for the non-certified accounts. It has some detail in it that our spreadsheet lacks. Specifically, one of the things is step that hourly employees are on and hourly, other hourly rate specifics. So we're going to take a look at that, see if we can incorporate our spreadsheet for non-certified into Dan's or vice versa. And the other thing that was presented was, should I go on about these food service? Food services is being audited. We have 2 schools that are going to be audited by the state and actually the USDA, and they're coming to look at our reporting, all facets of our reporting, how we manage our menus, how we manage, obviously cleanliness in the cafeteria and kitchens. They're looking at our emergency food program, emergency lunch program. They're looking at how money is accounted for and ultimately any debt that we've incurred for free lunches that were given out to children who ultimately, technically, shouldn't have received free lunch, or were students who were ultimately eligible for free lunch, but did not submit the paperwork in a timely manner. Those are some of the things that are being addressed as part of the budget, depending upon whether or not we pass this audit by the state. If we do not, then we certainly will be selected for an audit again next year. And that is everything that I had prepared for tonight.
We have the three
Oh, and the
budget
three budget
transfers. Just to explain to everybody what they are, we'll be voting on them a little later. Principal Creedon over at Forbes, she did all of her annual subscriptions, and in her subscription media account, she has an excess of $117.70, which she has requested to transfer to pick up some additional library books. At Vogel, Principal Tripaldi has a surplus in projected surplus in general repair and maintenance of audiovisual equipment and instructional equipment, $1,433 that he would like to spend in the library media center because he feels that the books are lacking in the school now that he's the new principal. He would like to expand the offerings there. And district-wide, $20,456 is being transferred out of the Ready, Set, Go. The state funding was higher this summer than projected, so there's a surplus in that account. And then in other professional services, $18,163 being transferred into the program that was run this summer for building bridges was $5,564. And the options program for keeping our kids in district, which is the Warner, Northwest Community College, and
But that was summer.
Yeah,
The camp intervention.
the camp intervention was $33,055.80. So we'd be moving out of Ready, Set, Go and other professional and into building bridges and options programs. Those were the three budget transfers that were brought forward. Any discussion on those questions? Dave, all you. Capital budget.
I did make some copies of basically the cover sheets for all the schools. That way, I gave you the main cover sheet for the entire capital plan. And what I did was, I just ran off the cover sheets for individual schools so you can see what the dollars are actually going for. Basically, the capital expenditure plan, as we call it, is due to the city January 1st. That's why we're bringing it to you now. Normally what happens is, I don't want to call it a rubber stamp, but it's almost a placeholder.
Can you go down 1 second?
Yep.
Do we have any extras of the ones that were handed out of budget? There was a pile that got passed around. There should have been extras.
The 5-year plan. Michael, did you make?
I don't have it, but I'll make a
No,
copy.
did you make something?
No, I gave my last one out to
Maybe we need to bring. Got it now, right?
Someplace.